Todd Gurley is one of the most ferocious running backs I've ever seen. When I was watching him in college at Georgia, I was like, man, there was not a single flaw in this kid's game. He was big, strong, fast, elusive, quick, everything you look for in your dream running back. He was listed at roughly 6'1", and that was really the ideal size for a running back. He wasn't monstrous where he couldn't go through the holes, but he also wasn't tiny. It was the power he possessed and the speed he possessed that made him out of this world. What made him so special is he could do everything. He could be a pounding ground, or he could also break off a 75-yard run. I know he didn't win a Heisman Trophy or anything like that, but it was hard to look at him play and say, there's too many players better than him. This may sound crazy to some of y'all, but I felt like he was a cheat code out there. He was one of my favorite running backs to watch. Fast forward in time to the NFL, he was also dominating, and his career was at an all-time high. It was only a few years ago, he was one of the best running backs in the NFL and one of the highest paid ones too. But now, as to when I'm filming and making this video, he doesn't even play in the NFL, and he has expressed he has no desires to come back. It blows my mind. He was one of the best running backs and the highest paid ones only a few years ago, and now he doesn't even want to come back. Whoa, hold on. Maybe it's not all his fault. There's something else that's been going on, and it's really affected his career. Let me put it this way. I think he loved nothing more than to go out there and play and have no worries whatsoever. That's his biggest problem though. There's a lot of stuff that went on behind the scenes that not too many people know about. It's not like he was a guy that was on drugs or he didn't like to work hard. He's a great dude on and off the field. You don't hear no problems that come out of him. There's a lot of unanswered questions that people have about Todd Gurley. But however, it all circles back to the main question we're going to try to figure out in today's video. What really happened to Todd Gurley? What's good, y'all? Real quick, we're on the road to 200K. We are super close, so if you do enjoy football videos, content like this, I would greatly appreciate it if you hit that subscribe button, leave a like for more. If not, that's cool too. And now, without further ado, let's get into it. To get into Mr. Todd Gurley's story, we gotta throw it all the way back to where things started, and I don't want to bore you and beat around the bush with his high school days, because we all know how this goes. Just like any star running back in high school, they're gonna dominate their competition. They're playing against future insurance salesmen and DoorDash drivers and plumbers. You can choose the worst running back in the NFL today, and I can guarantee you, promise you 100%, they obliterated high school competition. Gurley did just that. When it was all said and done for his high school career, he was regarded as a 4-star recruit and the 73rd best overall player in the country. I was actually kind of shocked about that because I thought he was a 5-star recruit, but I guess you learn something new every day. Although technically he wasn't listed as a 5-star recruit, when he got to Georgia, he proved why he should have been. I could harp on this dude for days. He was just that special to me. I couldn't get enough of him. I just want you to listen and take a look at these numbers. As a freshman for Georgia in 2012, he rushed for over 1,300 yards. He averaged 6.2 yards per carry to be exact and had 17 touchdowns. Let me remind you, that was his freshman season. Ladies and gentlemen, it does not get too much better than that, but let's take a look at what happened next year. In 2013, he only appeared in 10 games, but it was pretty much the same thing. He didn't drop off too bad. In those 10 games, he had nearly 1,000 yards rushing, had 6 yards a carry, and 10 touchdowns. A key side note to throw in there, he was a valuable weapon out of the backfield. He had 6 touchdowns receiving and had over 400 yards. That's what I'm talking about with Gurley. When he was at Georgia, if you were the offensive coordinator, you would just try to find any way possible to get him the ball. I'm going to emphasize this all throughout the video. He was special. I believe he was so good, if he could have entered the NFL draft after his freshman or sophomore year, he would have done so. But as we all know, you can't do that, so he had to come back for his 3rd and final year at Georgia in 2014. In this year, he only appeared in 6 games, and in those 6 games, he was just going off. He had 123 carries for 911 yards, which comes out to a whopping 7.4 yards per carry. I don't even know what to say about that, and I'm not too sure if the numbers do it justice. He also pitched in 9 touchdowns, and I think he could have easily surpassed 2,000 yards rushing that year. Unfortunately though, and I remember watching this live, he had a terrible injury, and it was a start to a bad domino effect. Late in the junior season against Auburn, he suffered a terrible ACL injury, and he would never play another snap of college football ever again. It didn't seem like a huge deal at the time, and it didn't seem like it was going to hold him back from achieving a lot of success in the future. Everything people saw out of this kid leading up to that ACL injury, it was nothing but good. I hope this goes to show you just how good he was. Even with that ACL injury, he was still selected in the 1st round with the 10th overall pick by the Los Angeles Rams. Well, my bad, technically at the time it was the St. Louis Rams. I'm just going to refer to them as the LA Rams because that's what they are now, and that's what they were for most of his his tenure there. Once he came back and recovered from that ACL injury, he didn't miss a beat. I'm not going to brag on him too much, I'm going to let his numbers do the talking. In 2015, in only 13 games played, 13 games, he had 1,100 rushing yards with 10 touchdowns. In the following season, it wasn't so hot, he only had 885 yards with 6. I don't want to say it was too concerning at the time, but it left you scratching his head because he had a drop off and he also played in 3 more games. Looking back at that drop off of a year in 2016, you can chalk that up as a fluke because in the next years, he got even better. In 2017, he had 1,300 rushing yards with 13 touchdowns, and in 2018, he had 1,250 rushing yards with 17 touchdowns. This man was going off, his career was at an all-time high, he signed a huge contract, it just really couldn't have got too much better. But however, with all that great stuff being said, here's where our story takes a drastic, and I mean a very drastic turn. In 2019, I'm going to show you his numbers right here. He only had 850 rushing yards with 12 touchdowns. On paper, doesn't seem too bad, and even watching him play, you didn't look at him and say, man, this guy's terrible, he's falling off. So at the time, everybody was asking this question. Okay, why is he not performing like he once was? He doesn't look like that same back. In 2019, that's when you could start to tell that he lost some of that juice and explosiveness, or whatever you want to call it. He wasn't that Todd Gurley that we've came to know. To get into what really happened, although we didn't notice the drop off in 2019, we gotta go back to 2018. In 2018, I'll show you right here, you'll notice he only played in 14 games. That's because he had to miss the last 2 games because of a knee injury. At the time, they didn't disclose what it was, they just chalked it up as his knees hurting. They wound up labeling it as a quote-unquote knee sprain, but we would find out later on it was worse than that. Fast forward in time to 2019 when we all started to realize he wasn't the same guy, it was also announced that he was suffering a strain in his quad. Just hearing that, you sitting on the couch were like, oh, he's just got a strained quad, doesn't seem like too big of a deal. If you don't listen to another single thing I say in this video, listen to this part because it might be the most vital piece of information. In March of 2019, it was officially announced that he had arthritis in his left knee. I know a lot of you might not understand what that is. Fortunately, I do because I've had 2 ACL surgeries, so I can somewhat relate. Basically, to make a long story short, arthritis is when your cartilage in your knees, it damages and it weakens over time. There's no surgery you can do to repair it, it's just your cartilage in your knee, like I said, it's getting weak and you can't do nothing about it. It's a sad situation. I'll give you a great example and I think this will give you a different perspective. It's very similar to old people. That's why you see them with walking canes or in wheelchairs, or they just walk slower. It's not that they weren't taking care of their body, their cartilage, it just weakens, and it happens to everybody, or it happens to a lot of people over time. Unfortunately for Mr. Todd Gurley, that's what was happening, and it all started and dated back to that ACL injury he had in college at Georgia. Although his ACL surgery, it went great, the cartilage, it just continued to get weaker, and think about all the carries he added on in the NFL. And when he's getting hit hard like he was every single season for 4, 5, 6 years straight, it's gonna add up. Here's a little fun fact though, and I think this goes to show you just how tough he was. Although he was battling these injury problems and that arthritis, he still played in 73 out of 80 games that he could have possibly played in. That comes to playing 91% of his games, and as a running back, that's pretty solid. I don't really think there's a debate for this. The running back position is the easily and most replaceable one in the league. Running backs take the most hits, they take the most everything. I wonder what the lifespan of one is. Or not the lifespan, my bad, the career lifespan of one is. It's probably got to be only 5 to 7 years. I also think this story, it's a great example of how quickly your life can change. In 2018, he signed a $60 million contract, was the highest paid running back in the league, and in 2019, he was released by the Rams. You want to talk about going from the highest of highs to lowest of lows, it doesn't get much worse than that. As most of us know, or you should know, his story doesn't quite end there. After being released on March 19th in 2020, he was picked up and signed by the Falcons on April 6th in 2020. He wasn't a free agent for long, and he signed a decent deal. It was a 1-year contract for $5.5 million. I think we can all agree that's a major fall off. He went from a $60 million contract to a $5 million contract. And maybe this will let it sink in. His contract with the Rams was $45 million guaranteed. With the Falcons, it was $2 million guaranteed. $45 million is life-changing. $2 million, it's not. I don't want to say everybody gave up on him just yet, but it was more of people trying to be realistic. Everybody knew he could be an NFL running back, but they also knew he wasn't going to be that 2017 or 2018 running back he once was. And I don't think that's disrespect, it's just the cold hard truth. In 2020 for the Falcons, he started 15 games, but he only had 678 rushing yards with 9 touchdowns. If you're going off of the stats, that was by far his worst year in the NFL up to date. And most recently in 2021, he didn't even play in the NFL, and it caused a lot of questions. All those questions, though, have recently been answered by the man himself, Todd Gurley, and here's what he had to say. Well, hold on, let me give you some context to it. Here's what he had to say when someone asked him if he wished he would have been out there playing in 2021. There was never not one time where I watched the game and was like, I wish I was out there. I appreciated my time in the league, and I've done things I could have never dreamed about. He said some more stuff, but wow, just going off of that, you kind of get the vibe and the feeling like he's done playing in the NFL. I found this interesting. Here's a piece of what he said about his former team winning the Super Bowl. You always get excited for the guys. It's never just about you. Yeah, everybody would love a ring, but at the end of the day, it's about being able to congratulate them and see other guys succeed and be happy for them. I hope that quote goes to show you just how great of a person Gurley is off the field. He wants to see others win as well. Here's the last and final quote I'm going to read from Gurley, and here's what he had to say about potentially coming back to the NFL. I like doing stuff on my time. I like doing whatever I want to do. I've never been the one that liked to be controlled. I like to be in control of my own path. That's the best thing about being in the position I'm in. If I want to try to play again, I can try to pursue that. Or if I don't, I can just relax and chill at the house and spend a lot more time with my family, because that's what it's all about at the end of the day. And then at the end of the day, still becoming a businessman and still venturing off in that next phase of my life. Okay, there we have it. And just going off of that quote, this is how I feel. I don't think he's going to be coming back anytime soon, or if ever. He really seems like he's at peace with his life, and I'm wishing nothing but the best for him, and just seems like he's in a great place. I do want to throw this in there. Todd Gurley is also part owner of a fan-controlled football league, which is also owned by Marshawn Lynch. Like he said in that quote, he's looking forward to being a businessman, and he's got enough money, or he's made enough money to relax. I just really feel like this is one of those odd circumstances where he's okay with what he did in the NFL, and he's just gonna do other stuff. It's really weird though, because he was so dominant when he was playing in college and in the NFL, and it all ended so quickly and really badly. It didn't end bad because of stuff he did off the field, it just ended bad because how fast he fell off. Overall though, here's what I think it comes down to. He's being realistic. He understands with that arthritis and all the knee problems he's had every single year of playing football, his knees won't allow him to play. As a person who's dealt with not one but 2 ACL injuries, I relate 100%. I'm sure there's some of you watching this. You have knee injuries and you can also relate. It's tough. You may love playing basketball, football, baseball, or any sport, but when your knees are telling you, hey, I can't do this, then you just can't. If he didn't have those knee injuries, I still believe he'd be in the NFL. But he's also came to the point in his life where he's not going to be dumb and try to go out there and play when he physically can't. I respect it a ton. He seems happy. I went to his Instagram. He's posting pictures, smiling. There's even a picture of him golfing, and I'm sure he likes to do that. I'm very curious. Let me know your thoughts on this down below. Do you see him coming back or never coming back? But what up is up, peace.